Oh, you actually thought the title was a joke? No, we're actually doing this. So, buckle up, relax, and enjoy the facts. A poster on Reddit asks, what are two events that took place in the same time in history but don't seem like they would have? Spain was still a fascist dictatorship when Microsoft was founded. There were no classes in calculus in Harvard's curriculum for the first few years because calculus hadn't been discovered yet. Two empires, Roman and Ottoman, spanned the entire gap from Jesus to Babe Ruth. When the pyramids were being built, there were still woolly mammoths. The last use of the guillotine was in France in the same year Star Wars came out. Oxford University was over 300 years old when the Aztec Empire was founded. Pablo Picasso died the year Pink Floyd released Dark Side of the Moon, 1973. Prisoners began to arrive in Auschwitz a few days after McDonald's was founded. Coca-Cola is only 31 years younger than Italy. Marilyn Monroe and Queen Elizabeth II were born in the same year. The Ottoman Empire still existed the same time Chicago Cubs won their World Series. I'm weirdly knowledgeable in the history of soda. I don't even drink soda. Why do I know so much about it? Coke and Pepsi taste different because Coke was invented before refrigeration, so it was designed to drink warm, while Pepsi was designed after refrigeration was invented and was designed to be drunk cold. As a result, the tastes are different, but if you drink Pepsi cold and Coke warm, they'll taste the same. Why the fuck do you know this? I honestly have no idea. Coke's recipe was originally green, but the designers made it brown so it looked more like tea. Have they never seen green tea? I don't even know if green tea was invented in 1886, but they wanted to make the public more open to eating the fizzy drink. Green tea was invented in the 13th century and made up 22% of the tea thrown off the ship in the Boston Tea Party. Alan, I know about soda, not green tea. I will trade you information about bees and carrier pigeons for information about the history of soda. No one knows where the origin of the name 7-Up started, but it did have a mood stabilizer in the original recipe found in present-day antidepressants. Now I want facts about bees and carrier pigeons now. Carrier pigeons come from a species of wild rock pigeon, and their flights could be as long as 1,800 kilometers and were used as early as 3,000 years ago. And you know in old cartoons where a character throws a beehive at someone and you think, well, that would never work in real life. Turns out it would. And did. People used to lob beehives at the approximate location of enemy forces to expose them. This is amazing, thank you. Jojo, do you have anything to say about these fun facts? Fantastic, thank you. My sister just told me that technically kangaroos had 5 limbs because their tail is classified as a leg, because they use that to propel themselves forward, which makes them the only pentapedal animal on Earth. She just told me that there's a frog that literally grows a spiky mustache and goes and fights other male frogs for a girlfriend. Turns out flamingos aren't actually pink. They're born gray but turn pink from the shrimp they eat. So my dudes, it turns out there's a flower that only blooms every couple years, and I know what you're thinking. Wow, it must be so beautiful. Turns out it smells like fucking corpses. What the fuck? Side fun fact, that's what Vileplume is based off of. My best friend just told me that frogs use their eyeballs to swallow their food by retracting them into their head and pushing the food down, and honestly, the most horrific thing I've ever heard. Isn't it creepy that from the day you're born you start to die? Actually, fun fact, if starting to die is defined as cells start dying at a faster rate than they are replaced, then you don't start dying the day you were born. You're still growing, and cells are still being replaced pretty quickly for about 22 to 25 years. So 25, that's when you start to die. Ask any 25-year-old and they will confirm. Intelligence officials thought they could use Castro's love of scuba diving to topple him. They planned to hide explosives inside a large seashell and paint it with exotic colors to lure the attention of the ocean-loving communist. I'm in tears over this, holy shit. Just a year after Castro seized power, the agency spiked the cigars with botulinum toxin strong enough to kill anyone who would put one in their mouth. The cigars were delivered to an unidentified person in 1961, according to the subcommittee, but it's unclear what's happened to them after that. The same year, the CIA planned to contaminate one of Castro's diving suits with a fungus that would produce a chronic and debilitating skin disease. In 1960, the CIA planned to sabotage Castro's speeches by spraying his broadcasting studio with a chemical that would make him suffer similar hallucinations to LSD. Other plots included spiking the dictator's scars with a chemical that would disorientate him, hoping he would smoke one before delivering one of his marathon oratory performances. And they also tried dusting his shoes with thallium salts, which would make Castro's iconic beard fall out. It's a little known fact that in 60s and 70s, the CIA was actually run by a fucking wily coyote. Try to implement anything but a conservative's 6th grade education level of medieval Victorian times, and you will butt into this all the time. There was a literal fad in the 1890s for nipple rings for all genders. And no, it was not under the mistaken belief that it would help breastfeeding. There's a lot of doctors writing at the time telling people to stop, and they thought it would ruin the breast's ability to breastfeed well, etc. It was straight up because the Victorians were freaks. Okay, imagine trying to make a Victorian character with nipple rings. Imagine the accusations of gross historical inaccuracy. People just really have entrenched ideas of what people in the past were like. Tell them the Vikings were clean, had a complex democratic legal system, respected women, had free-form rap battles, and had child support payments, they'd call you a liar. Tell them chopsticks became popular in China during the Bronze Age because street food vendors were all the rage and they wanted to have disposable eating utensils, they'll say you're making that up. Tell them Native Americans had a trade network stretching from Canada to Peru and built sacred mounds bigger than the pyramids of Giza, you're some SJW twisting facts. Ancient Egypt had circular saws, depth cards, and eye surgery. Are you high? Our misconception of medieval peasants being illiterate and living in poverty and one-room mud huts being their own creation as a part of century-long tax evasion scam? You stole that from the Game of Thrones reject bin. Iron Age India had stone telescopes, air conditioning, and the number 0 along with all Arabic numbers, including algebra and calculus. I understand some of those words. You know, this post gets better every time it comes across my dash. To provide some more, the Romans also had vending machines, automated puppet plays, doors that opened to the sound of horns when you lit a fire in front of them, and working steam engines. All invented by one dude, the hero of Alexandria. People generally want to think that the Dark Ages is the sum of the entire history of the world. Charlemagne had a frigging pet elephant sent as a present by the Caliph over in Baghdad. Emperor Frederick II, around 1200, crossed the Alps with his own private zoo, including giraffes, in order to impress and dazzle his Germanic subjects, and it frigging worked. He also introduced legislation that a doctor was not allowed to also sell medicine to prevent obvious charlatanry, but had to write a recipe for an apothecary to then redeem, which is a system still in use in Germany and other countries. He spoke several languages, was tolerant towards his Muslim subjects in southern Italy, you read that correctly, and was opposed to trial by combat on reasons of it being unfair and irrational. Fun statistical fact: cows are about 300 times more likely to kill you than coyotes. Minor side note to statistical fact: if it was common for people to keep several hundred coyotes on their property and routinely chase them into a corral and handle them, this statistic would be very different. I love how humans have literally not changed throughout history. Like the graffiti from Pompeii has people from hundreds of years writing stuff like, "Marcus is gay, I fucked a girl here. Julius, your mom wishes she was with me." And Leonardo da Vinci's assistant drew dicks in their notebooks just for the banter. Not to mention Mozart created a piece called "Kiss My Ass." So when people wish for today's generation to be like how people used to be, then we were already there, buddy. We've always been. The Hagia Sophia had inscriptions that were considered sacred for centuries, until they were deciphered in the 70s to be Nordic runes saying, "Halfdan wrote this." My old English professor told us that there's a cave in Scandinavia where a Viking graffitied some runes like 14 feet up on the wall, and when they finally reached it, all it translated into was, "This is very high." Today I learned that the reason lead levels in children's blood has dropped 85% in the past 30 years is because of an unknown scientist who fought car companies to end leaded gasoline. He also removed it from paint, suggested its removal from pipes, and campaigned for the removal of lead solder from cans. Yet, it also correlates extremely strongly to an increasing decrease of violent crime. One of the symptoms of low-level constant lead exposure is increased aggression and volatility. Unknown scientist? That was Claire Cameron Patterson. Today, I learned prehistoric hunter-gatherer tribes had an average group limit of 50 people. Incidentally, modern research shows that in the video game World of Warcraft, maximum group player cohesiveness occurs at a limit of 50 players. Literally no difference between cavemen and WoW players. The day this was posted was Copernicus's 541st birthday. You may remember Copernicus as the man who said, "Hey, what if the Earth went around the sun?" To which the Catholic Church replied, "Hey, what if we set you on fire?" History brought to you by Tumblr. Fun fact, the reason that the plural of goose is geese, but the plural of moose is not meese, is because goose derives from the ancient Germanic word undergoing strong declension in the pattern of foot, feet, and tooth, teeth, where an oo is mutated to e. However, moose is a Native American word added to the English lexicon only 400 years ago, and lacks the etymological reason to be pluralized in that way. Oh baby, keep talking dirty to me. Lilo and Stitch is a great example of a story that has no villains. It has antagonists, sure, but most of them are well-meaning. The worst person in the film is that little shit Myrtle, but she's not in the film that much anyway. Since this post is getting traction, I want to clarify how not villainous the antagonists are. The Grand Councilwoman is literally just responding to what she sees as a threat to the galaxy and is extremely reasonable. Gantu is much the same. He's a bit overzealous, yes, but he thinks he's saving the galaxy from Stitch. Cobra Bubbles is literally doing his job. He's obviously not happy about it, but he is doing what he feels is best for Lilo, and much like the Councilwoman, is extremely reasonable. Myrtle is again just a little shit. She's a schoolyard bully and is truly small potatoes in the grand scheme of all things. Jumba calls himself an evil scientist, but literally nothing supports that. His only on-screen crime is creating a bunch of Pokemon that have the powers that will mildly inconvenience people and can be persuaded to be nice over the course of 22 to 90 minutes. To say nothing of himself, seeing as he decides to change his ways at the softest bit of persuasion. And Pleakley is literally just gay. Let's say your matrilineal line is fairly consistent and everyone has their daughter at 25. So, 4 women in your matrilineal line are born every 100 years. In 1,000 years, that's only 40. Like, the math is so simple, and yet, you don't think about it. So in 2,000 years, 80 women. So basically, 0 AD started roughly about 80 mothers ago. That's it. I'm a little drunk, I cannot deal with this right now. In 4th grade, I was introduced to the concept of run-on sentences by my teacher, and I immediately raised my hand and pointed out that none of these sentences being used as examples were actually grammatically wrong at all, and they were just longer than most people can comfortably write/read, and she made me sit in the corner, and I feel like that shows a lot in my typing style on this hell site. Run-on sentences are ADHD culture. If you're still here or still awake, thank you so much for listening. If you liked this kind of interesting take on the Tumblr ratings, do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you think. Are there any facts that you feel could be contested? Let me know. With that, I'll see you all next time. If you excuse me, I got someone else's ASMR boyfriend to hit with my car. Bye.